This conference will now be recorded.
Anna, Kim, thank you so much for the introduction, lovely introduction. It's so great to be with all of you tonight. As Anna mentioned, I have a member of the Mercer County Library System, the Ewing branch in particular. Those folks have been great. I worked for a time with CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates in Mercer County, and the convenience of the library and the folks in there were so nice and helpful. So thanks for all the great services you provide. As Anna said, I'm Marty Siederer. I'm a volunteer of the Speakers Bureau for the New Jersey chapter of AARP, and I look forward to sharing some information with you tonight about fraud prevention and AARP's Fraud Watch Network. So my job as your facilitator tonight is to present valuable information to you that'll help you recognize and hopefully avoid fraud. I'm an AARP volunteer, so I've had training on fraud. We have resources, and I'm not necessarily an expert on the field too, and I'll try to help with your questions at the end. Scammers steal billions of dollars from unsuspecting consumers every year, and the impact on victims and their families can be financially and emotionally devastating, especially for older Americans. And that's why AARP created the Fraud Watch Network to empower consumers to spot and avoid scams and to provide support and guidance to victims and their families when fraud unfortunately does happen. Some of you might wonder, well, why is AARP engaged in this? You probably know that AARP began 60 years ago when its founder discovered one of her former teachers living in a chicken coop. And she was appalled that a woman who worked her whole life couldn't even afford a place to live. So she founded AARP to protect the financial security of older Americans, and fighting identity theft and fraud is part of that core mission. So tonight we're going to look at fraud trends, the con artist playbook, prevention, and resources, how to access and share up-to-date information so that someone you love doesn't become a victim. I'm guessing nearly everyone today on our call has been approached with a fraudulent offer. I'm sure I got a call today, as a matter of fact, about my auto warranty being up for renewal too. So it's commonplace, it happens. Hopefully you've never been a victim of identity theft or know of someone who has, but if that's the case, you or those folks are not alone. The top scams reported to the Federal Trade Commission typically involved identity theft and imposter scams. We're going to take some time talking to each of those and really talking about how the pandemic really increased the incidences of those happening. So what exactly is identity theft? It's when somebody steals your personal information like your social security number, bank account information, and becomes identity theft when somebody uses that information to steal money. And that can involve opening credit cards in your name and racking up thousands of dollars in debt. It can mean a scammer is draining your bank accounts or applying for government benefits in your name, and can even involve filing bogus tax returns. And identity fraud, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and consumers lost $16.9 billion identity fraud in 2019 alone. And during the pandemic, we learned of millions of dollars being hijacked in unemployment benefits, and those were part of stolen identities and people being defrauded to get benefits, not to the good guys, but to the bad people. Imposter scams can involve criminals impersonating someone to coerce people into giving them more money or money. These criminals impersonate federal government workers, sheriffs, tech support workers, even our family and friends. And their primarily approach typically starts a robocall or a live call. And the robocall recipients warned of a bad situation, they have to call back to address immediately. Some of us gotten these calls about that your kid needs $10,000 to be freed from someplace. Obviously frauds. Many times it's someone saying they're from Social Security Administration. They see suspicious activity happening with your Social Security number, or even offering to apply for benefits on your behalf, quote unquote. I mentioned the scam before, so that's the grandparent scam, where a target gets a frantic call from someone claiming to be their grandchild. or the grandchild's attorney, and they need your help right away to get them out of some mess. Often the ruse is bail money. The person was in a friend's car, got pulled over, and the police found drugs, and they need you to bail them out. Or they were in a terrible accident, and the person in the other car is in critical condition. Anything to try to jar you into wiring money or purchasing gift cards. And during the pandemic and still going on, people were posing as Medicare to offer special quote unquote COVID-19 benefits. Let's move on and cover other types of scams. So another type of scam is investor fraud. The person you see on your screen is named Steve, and he was 58 degrees, graduate degree, and he made his living as a successful stockbroker. But he lost $40,000 to fraudulent oil and gas investments out of Dallas. So a common means of con artists committing investment fraud is through free lunch seminars. I'm sure you've seen these through the mail, through emails. The scammer invites the people of lunch to a webinar and then presents an unbeatable investment opportunity you have to sign up for right then and there. You can't sign up later on because the presenter says they're leaving town in 2 hours, and so is your money. Of course, this doesn't say that all free lunches are potential scams. There are many that are legitimate businesses, and the tactic of offering a free lunch to a sales pitch to captive audience, can be legit. However, be very wary and employ healthy skepticism. While free lunches aren't happening much because of COVID, but you might be getting phone calls, emails, text messages. You can see advertisements online or on TV or radio for that call now for a once in a lifetime opportunity. And we've all heard about scams through the years. Things like you've just won, lottery and fake prizes, extremely common, and they wreak millions of dollars for unsuspecting targets. Just through the third quarter of 2020, reports to the FTC came in at nearly $99 million. I mean, the numbers are just mind-boggling. And many scams don't go reported, so these numbers are likely higher. So the ruse is to get the target especially excited that they supposedly won some huge sweepstakes. The criminals then string the victims along, requiring continuous payments of taxes, and upfront fees. So Jean, you see in the picture, was one such victim. She received a call from a man saying that she won $7.9 million in the Jamaican lottery. All she had to do was pay the taxes to collect. And over a 6-month period, this person called Jean hundreds of times and convinced her to wire over $30,000 in, quote, taxes and processing fees. I mean, it's hard to understand why people fall for this, but we're going to talk about later about why scammers are so successful and why it's not the victim's fault. Another all too common fraud scheme is the tech support scam. It's typically from a call center, that call. So it can start a variety of ways. Somebody might be calling and saying they're from Microsoft or some other big tech company and claiming they've identified a virus on your computer. Or you might see it pop up on your screen with a warning sign that something's wrong with your device and to call the toll-free number immediately. And the ultimate objective is for that person or tech company to remotely access your computer. And as a result, they could be stealing valuable information. So credit cards you may be using online, for legitimate purchases. So how do these scammers succeed? When we look at a scam after the fact, it's really hard to imagine how we'd be a victim of something so obvious. But the reality is criminals are sophisticated and typically are part of an organized crime ring with money, access to the tools of their trade. When they think about power and balance, when we think about it, it's easy to understand why they're so successful. So let's take a second and look at what we'll call the con artist playbook. So where did these insights in the con artist playbook come from? The two key sources for understanding how fraud works are jailhouse interviews with convicted con artists and analysis of undercover audio tapes that ARP received from law enforcement. So a sampling of one of the tapes is, you don't want to make up your mind right now. That's where I come in. I will make up my mind for you. So just a good tactic to avoid. So think like, I said I would not call unless it was a rare and devalued situation. You can go to your grave knowing you did the right thing and can meet with God with a clear conscience. So things really to make you feel guilty. So this is Jimmy from New York. He's the king of the star scammers. And he worked in over 30 what they call boiler rooms, so small rooms with a lot of telephones. And he worked in those small rooms over an 8-year period. And Jimmy claimed to take in over $60 million, and especially was business opportunity scams. And as Jimmy said, I'm a dangerous person. If I choose to be fraudulent in my practices, there is nothing that's going to stop me. So pretty scary stuff, huh? When authorities ask convicted con artists to describe how they convince people to part with their money, they'll say the same thing. Get them under the ether. So what's ether? We know it from the old use of ether in operations to knock people out for the operations. But now it refers to a highly emotional state that makes it hard to think clearly and make rational decisions. Scammers know that once they get their target out of the logical mindset and into an emotional state, they've won you over. So as Jimmy said, if you apply logic, you won't send your hard-earned money. But when he wraps it up in emotion, it blurs and logic goes out the window. And he's not a stranger to people anymore. He's Jimmy from New York. So that's how he gets to win people over, or got to win people over. And scammers have a variety of persuasion tactics they use. ARP listened to a bunch of audio tapes and encoded them to see which persuasion tactics were used mostly by con artists. So the 5 were phantom riches, profiling, scarcity, source credibility, and fear and intimidation. Phantom riches are something that you really want to become excited about, and scammers will dangle that possibility of wealth in front of their targets. A con artist named Jeremy, he sold coins to seniors, and he described the phantom riches operations this way. We would tell people that gold would absolutely double in value in the next 1 or 2 years, and that the prospect would be able to rely on it, making them far more money than any other investment vehicle. Scammers will develop a victim profile by asking a series of personal questions so he or she can find your emotional trigger. Once they know your emotional trigger, they know which tactics will work with you. So here's how Jimmy described the con artist use of profiling to scamming people. The con artist gathers an arsenal of personal information by being friendly. They're making notes. 2 children, one with a mental illness, one brother lost in Vietnam. They're using all that information to put together their arsenal and profile the person they're on the phone with so they know which buttons to push to bring the emotion up in that person. And what Steven said was, what I'm trying to do is have a victim on the phone. I try to find their emotional Achilles heel. Once I do, it enables me to use their weakness against them. How many of you have seen going out of business sales that seem to last forever? Or one-day sales that happen every other week? Scarcity sells because it taps into our evolutionary fear of running out of food and water, so FOMO, fear of missing out. When you think there's a limited supply of something, you rush to get it. So the con artist will try to paint a picture of what they have to offer as rare or available only for a limited time. And we saw this so much during the pandemic, especially with personal protective equipment, household cleaners, even toilet paper. And con artists try to build credibility by using a well-known celebrity, appearing successful, claiming affiliation with a reputable organization, or touting a special credential or experience. And those source credibility scams include IRS, Social Security imposter scams. During COVID, people also impersonated the Center for Disease Control and the World Health Organization. Fear and intimidation are used to scare targets to handing over money. It's not uncommon for some con artists to use threats and call targets 50 to 60 times a day. Remember the story earlier about lottery fraud? When the victim finally stopped answering her phone, the scammer continued to harass that person. They left threatening voicemail messages on her answering machine. Why don't you want to pick up the bleeping phone? Pick up the bleeping phone when I'm calling you and you stop playing games with me. Want me to come over there and set your house on fire? True story. So now we know that knowing about a scam helps defend against it. Research has found out that if you know about a specific scam, you're 80% less likely to engage in it. If you do engage in it, you're 40% less likely to become a victim. So let's practice some of these in action. So one example, back in 1860, when the Philadelphia Mint, there were 22,675 of these coins minted. Of those, only 22,000, only four have survived. Only four, for God's sakes, only four remain at that grade. So they're really trying to tap into the fear of missing out here. So the free system where you can become a lifetime investor, the average home costs over $200,000. You're about to learn how to buy them for only a few $100s with no monthly payments. So definitely some things that are not legitimate at work here. Getting something for 5 easy payments too. Uh, that's something that may be perceived as being rare. I've never seen anything like we've ever offered that's getting a response like this. Isn't that something you need to just about every day? And you can't find these in stores. I'm sure we're hearing about this stuff. I mean, we're laughing about it and saying it'll never happen to me. But these things have happened to neighbors. So, what can we do to avoid being roped into some of these scams? Avoid making a financial decision in a heightened emotional state. So, take that step back. I always take that step back when I'm about to sign a document. So make sure you're of sound in mind, and also talk to somebody else about it. To your spouse, partner, somebody that you trust. At least they can give you a reality check. Do your research. I've worked for 40 years in the nonprofit fundraising, and I advocate for any donors to go to those websites like charitynavigator.org, uh, or GuideStar is another one where you can do your research. You can see how much money, if you contribute, how much of that dollar goes to specific things that the organization is doing. Is it going to research? Is it going to help patients? Is it going to help people get homes, food? It's important to check that because you want to make sure that the money that you're donating is going to the right place. Uh, if somebody comes to you with a seeming incredible investment opportunity, those two websites to see here are ones to check to see if those brokers haven't been suspended or have their licenses, lifted or have been reported to various agencies as having bad practices. Scammers are really adept at robocalls, email, text nowadays, and also social media too. Don't rely on caller ID to see who's calling. I mean, if you have a doubt, let that call go to voicemail, without even picking up. Particularly sometimes that scammers will record you when you say pick up. They say, are you so and so? And you say yes. That yes could be recorded and used to, and who knows what reasons, and who knows what purposes. If you're out on the arm for things that you didn't agree to. So be mindful. Scammers send fake emails and text to try to get you to click on a link or share sensitive personal information. I got a text the other day from somebody who hacked into my LinkedIn network and said, I'm so and so, I'm at a meeting. Call me as soon as possible. And I knew that person was at a meeting, and it was really the first time that I saw that tactic being used. So always engage your inner skeptic before responding. Um, Develop a refusal script. So if you're approached by these, you have something you say down pat for no thank you, or thank you, no thank you, goodbye, hanging up, click. That's the best way to get out of these, or just ignore them totally. Very important. Protect personal information. Shred sensitive information. So if you're doing some house cleaning and you have your credit card bills from a few years back, take those to the shredder, because if you put them out for recycling, who knows, can is driving by, picks up that paper, and they have your credit card numbers. Monitor bills and financial records. I mean, if a credit card bill doesn't arrive by a certain time, or if the credit card itself that you requested doesn't arrive, and if it has charges you don't recognize, contact the bank or the credit card company immediately. Don't wait. Don't put it aside, because if you see one, you might see more. Uh, you can use your app, and I think also too, it's just a good practice, because you can see if maybe your check wasn't cashed, or if it was cashed by somebody you didn't recognize too. So you might want to put a fraud alert on your credit reports too. And it's a requirement that your lender must ensure you're the one requesting a loan or opening a credit card on your account. Uh, and I think it's just, again, good protection, for you. Uh, Watch over your credit reports. You see annualcreditreport.com. And then when you get the email updates, on your banking account, you can check your FICO scores, your credit scores, and that's another target too. So if you think credit went all the way dropping down, and you didn't purchase anything, that's obviously a clue that something's amiss. Keep your operating and antivirus software current. Very important nowadays. Never share your passwords. Never share security codes with anybody. Um, Use unique passwords for each online account. Password managers, those programs are good. Obviously, use legitimate ones, and change your passwords often too. The good web browsers will prompt you to do that, or reputable companies will ask you to change your information. And also, I think double authentication is a very important aspect. So that means if you log in, it'll ask to send a text to your cell phone to confirm that it's really you. That's something that I do. I'm a big believer in that. Through AARP, you can visit our website, aarp.org/fraud watch network. So we have number of resources on there, so you can receive watchdog alerts. We have a helpline, 877-908-3360. If you or a loved one suspects a scam, you can look up a report a scam in your area and learn how AARP is trying to combat fraud. So empowering victims to get support. So AARP offers resilience, strength, and training, so REST. It's 1 hour free virtual sessions open to anybody across the country. Hopefully it'll put your mind at ease, and it's a safe space to talk about fraudulent activities. And there's a website for registering or learning more. So we reviewed some trends in scams and fraud today. We got inside the mind of a scammer. We discussed common persuasion tactics. We provided tips and resources so that you hopefully can prevent yourself from fraud and scams. And again, check the AARP Fraud Watch Network. And if you learned something today, please share it with your friends. If they missed out on today's webinar, please ask them to check out the replay too. And I hope you will continue to stay connected with programs through the AARP and the Mercer County Library System. I'm glad to take questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Marty. I think one of the questions, I have a question for myself,
Sure.
because one of the things that you talked about was shredding documents. And I'm trying to think about digitally what I should do. like I have old laptops at
Yeah.
home, but what should I can't really just throw them out. I mean, I should probably wipe them clean or what is it? Do you have ideas of what I can do to my electronics to make sure when I dispose of them, like if I put them in recycling, that they are disposed of properly through recycling, but that all my information is off of those is the main thing.
That's a great question. Actually, I have two old laptops. We're doing some house cleaning too, and I have two old laptops, and I'm going through the same thing too. So, one, erase everything. Two, if you can take out the hard drive, you'll
Hmm.
easily pull it out, mash it up. You use a hammer on it, etc. Uh, and then I think if you're going to recycle your computer, take it to a place that's reputable. So, for example, in my town, you can drop off electronics, and I think some towns or counties maybe can do it once a month. So make sure you're taking it to a reputable place like that, and not some place that is going to resell it, and that's and you don't know the reputation of that source.
That's a great point because I know Mercer County does a routine electronics recycling where you can take the materials in and have them recycle it. But my thing was like just getting it off. And it's funny because that is one of the things I heard is actually taking the hard drive out
Yeah,
and just breaking it so that it can't be retrievable.
yeah, that's because I think for sure at least your personal information will be on there. But again, make sure you're erasing everything. And I think sometimes what people forget to do is log out of some of the accounts they have on their web browser. So something like if they're storing everything
Mm,
on their Gmail account or on Google Drive. So if they don't delete their hard drives and if they're still haven't wiped everything off and they automatically get logged into their Gmail account, somebody can just go to their Google Drive and go, oh, here's the list of the passwords.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I know the AARP has the Fraud Watch database that you can go into. Do you recommend anywhere other places to look, like New Jersey Division of Consumer Affairs, or any other places that we can go to kind of report fraud? Or I guess there's the FTC also, but if there's any other places that you can recommend like that.
I think those are the main ones. I think sometimes local, I think county government too, the consumer protection
Yes,
bureaus too. Um, yeah, I think the main thing is not to go to a website that says consumer fraud because those folks may advertise, they may appear at the top of the search, and they may not be the nice people.
I think one of the things that I'm glad that you pointed out was that they really do try to get you when you're under distress, if you're not,
Yeah,
because you're not thinking clearly. And I think it's part of us. It's just a human nature thing where we want to give an answer, we don't want to look silly, we just whatever. But it's okay to take a breath, and you have every right
yeah,
just to end the call,
yeah,
end the contact that's happening.
yeah. And it's just like if you don't like a TV program, change the channel. So
Right.
if somebody calls
Move
and we
on.
think they're scamming us, hang up. That's our way of changing the channel.
Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, but I do want to thank you so much. I think it's an important topic, and I think you pointed out some of the really key points for us to look out for. And I know I've had friends who um, have been victims of
Hmm.
some type of fraud,
Yeah.
and I think it's always good to kind of revisit it and just remind ourselves what we can do to protect ourselves.
And I think it's also important to just watch the news too, because scammers are
Yes,
always one step ahead of the game. So
yes,
stuff that we maybe share tonight, 30 days, there's probably going to be something new out there.
something new.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, thank you again. And I do want to thank Kim for helping everything behind the scenes go smoothly. And for everyone who was attending this evening, thank you so much. And Marty, again, I appreciate you taking time.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Mercer County Library System.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Marty, I'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was fun.